This is Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast where we bring Jesus into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey guys, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. It's so glad to have you here joining us for a new show in 2021. Happy New Year. It is early January, and we are excited for our guest today, a guy I've been waiting to have on for a long time, David Tyree, Super Bowl champion, New York Giants, the greatest catch in Super Bowl history, the helmet catch. And David Tyree is going to be our guest today on Sports Spectrum. Before we get to our conversation with David, I want to tell you about a few things. First of all, our website. Check it out at sportspectrum.com with all sorts of great content there. And then if you have a story idea or a guest suggestion for this show, you can email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. jason@sportspectrum.com. I'd love to hear from you. Any guest ideas, like I said, maybe you have a story idea, something that you know about, you can reach me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. And we are presented today by IJM, the International Justice Mission. Great partners with us here at Sports Spectrum. You can learn more and donate to the great work they're doing, helping to end slavery in our lifetime by going to the website ijm.org/TF to become a Freedom Partner today. ijm.org/TF. They're great people. They do great work, and you can join them right now and donate. ijm.org/TF. We're also presented today by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. And because of COVID-19, there's children around the world right now who are living in poverty, and the issue of food has gone from just being hungry to starvation. It's a dire situation. The pandemic has magnified their needs, and they truly are in crisis. So we're partnering right now with Compassion International. And think about this. Most of the events that Compassion relies on to help sponsor these children in crisis were canceled due to the pandemic. And it's left nearly 70,000 kids in desperate need of help. So check out the website, fillthestadium.com, to learn how you can help take part in releasing kids and their families from poverty. Fillthestadium.com. Join the team helping children in poverty through this crisis. Fillthestadium.com. Today on Sports Spectrum, we welcome David Tyree, Super Bowl champion and the former New York Giants wide receiver, was selected in the 6th round of the 2003 NFL Draft by the Giants, number 211 overall. Played his college ball at Syracuse, then 6 seasons for his hometown team, the New York Giants, from 2003 to 2008. Finished out his career with the Baltimore Ravens in 2009, and then was the New York Giants Director of Player Development from 2014 till just recently, 2019. Now, David, you know David Tyree if you're a football fan, because he's made the most famous catch, and maybe the greatest catch, I think it's the greatest catch, in Super Bowl history, that famous 32-yard helmet catch from Eli Manning, which helped propel the Giants to the greatest upset in NFL history, beating the undefeated New England Patriots 17-14 and giving the Giants a Super Bowl championship. David Tyree, 54 career receptions and 4 career touchdowns in the regular season. This is a guy who was known for his special teams work. I mean, in fact, he was a Pro Bowler in 2005 and a first-team All-Pro in 2005 as a special teams ace. And he's now known as the guy who made the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. And people forget, he talks about it on the show too, the forgotten touchdown. He actually caught a touchdown pass in that game, not the helmet catch, but a prior catch in that game as a touchdown to help give the Giants the lead. And so now he's known as that guy who made that helmet catch. But he's also a great guy. He's a follower of Christ. He's a father. He's a husband. 7 kids this man has. God bless him. Pray for him and his wife. But this is a great conversation. A guy who's going to tell his story of how God did an amazing work in his life while he was playing in the NFL. This is the story of David Tyree here on Sports Spectrum. David, welcome to Sports Spectrum, brother. How are you?
Man, it's a delight to be here with you, Jason. Great to reconnect.
It's good to reconnect with you, too. I tell people, you know, I've told the David Tyree story to a lot of people, not just from the guy who won the Super Bowl, but 3 days later, I think it was, on a Wednesday morning and afternoon. We spent the day together at ESPN as you were going through the car wash,
There we go.
which we'll explain the car wash in a little bit. But let's start with just the idea of that catch, because it's sort of the staple of what David Tyree now, from a football perspective, is known for. How many times are you asked about that helmet catch in a week? It's got to be hundreds.
Yeah, you know what? I guess having the ability to step away, have a public persona, and then I have a private life that kind of affords a great sense of normalcy. I think I kind of got a good mix of the best of the both worlds. So I wouldn't say, it might be a few times weekly, but once somebody understands or learns who I am, that is the immediate aha, the light bulb moment. So it's always good conversation.
Yeah, but Giant fans, I mean, they're going to be forever looking at you as one of those guys that helped bring them a championship, right? Those fans will be wearing 85 jerseys till as long as they're around, right?
We're going to print some 85 jerseys up, man. I said, got to get the machine going again.
That's right.
And the good vibes going. But no, it's amazing. Obviously playing for an iconic franchise like the Giants, winning there, being a part of that amazing championship run, and then having that moment, it's definitely it's a love affair for a lifetime.
It's weird though, isn't it, that catch was actually, the helmet catch was the last reception of your career, right?
Yeah. It's you know what? The funny thing was, obviously I missed the entire next season, started the injuries, and you come back with the Ravens, and for me, it was honestly getting back on the field, and that was something that I never even thought about or considered until it was brought to my attention just years later. I'm like, well, you know what? If you're going in, you might as well end with a bang. So I certainly wasn't going to outdo the catch, that's for sure.
Well, the interesting thing is, and this is just my crazy sort of Rain Man Super Bowl trivia, there's a guy named Percy Howard. I don't know if you know who Percy Howard is. He never played in an NFL game, never caught a ball in a regular season NFL game. He's had one career reception. It was in Super Bowl X, of all places, and it was a touchdown pass from Roger Staubach when he was with the Cowboys. So,
and from Roger Staubach, not a bad guy.
Yeah,
a great.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You just got to seize your moment. You never know when those opportunities come, right?
Exactly, man. Now, that's called the greatest play in Super Bowl history by many people, including ESPN. Can you kind of just, because this is just fun stuff for us as we listen, as fans listen, the moment that you're in there, are you even supposed to be in the game? Because you're the fourth receiver, am I right? The fifth receiver on that team in that play?
Yeah, I'm the, just, I guess you say by virtue of who was in the game, like, 4 wide receiver sets was when I was coming into the game. So, yeah, but on that play, of course, play designs, New England ran a lot of, 42 coverage, which was cover 4 on one side and 2 on the other. So you got beaters on both sides. And we actually had a great play call. And even as Eli would tell it, if all things went well, I would have been a go-to on the post over the top, which is, we call that a dummy route, for the most part, usually taking the top off the coverage. Steve Smith's got a sideline outbreaking route. And, all that crumbled. We thank our offensive line for having their worst performance on that play. And now we got history.
Whatever it takes to get history, right? That's so funny. Interestingly enough, after that game, a lot happened, obviously. There's the parade, and I remember you kind of, holding the ball and the helmet, imitating it when you're talking to all the Giant fans. And then the next day, you're in Bristol, Connecticut with me doing the ESPN thing. And then you get on a plane, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and go to appear on Ellen DeGeneres' show.
Yeah.
So, and then you ended up writing a book. There's a lot that came with in the aftermath of winning that Super Bowl and being lavished with all that attention and publicity. What was that like?
Yeah, it was definitely new. I think for me, I was in a very stable place of understanding who I was, what it was about, really even kind of sensing this, some eternal purpose to it all, understanding the nature of the platform that I never had a great appetite for celebrity, but it was a moment of, to some degree of validation, right, in your craft, in your career, when you're a backup guy like myself, who I think always had to respect my peers, but no one knows that you can perform in a big game at that measure, and it was a sense of fulfillment. So was a lot of things going on, but you know, at the end of the day, you got to enjoy the ride, you know. And so that was really what it was all about, man. Just embracing the moment, enjoying the ride, and you know, seeing what opportunities came from it. So we tried to make the most.
Well, it was also an opportunity because just you and I spending that day together,
Yeah.
it was an opportunity for you to talk about Jesus on very, very big public platforms, right?
Oh man, listen, that's all you know, especially for me at that time. I was so, you know, I guess you could say inebriated with faith, because Christ was just so intertwined with my story relative to us winning the Super Bowl. There was a lot of, you know, interwoven, you know, stories about how you know, the Lord just had His hand in my life and also in that season. And I was, you know, like I said, not to say, you know, I tell people, I think God is more interested in people than He is in championships. And I think, you know, so that's my simple way of saying that, hey, if there's somebody that He's interested in, it could be to the benefit of all kinds of people. So, and I think the Giants, you know, say, and it was just me having that opportunity to give God all the glory.
Well, I want to talk about kind of a few of the things that took place in that 07 season. I remember you telling me about it when we were just walking around, and I'm shaking my head like, really, that clearly is only from God. But let's go back a little bit before the catch, before the Super Bowl victory. There was a man in high school and college who was struggling, right? Can you kind of share who that guy was and some of the, you know, difficult seasons of life that you had to walk through?
Yeah, man, it was, you know, we call him, I joke around every now and then. I say BCDT was not a guy that most people really knew or even wanted to know. And I just had my struggles as a young man growing up in Jersey. I had a great, you know, mom was great. I had parents who did the best they could, and that still left me, you know, in a divorced home. And alcohol was introduced very young, 14, 15, marijuana around the same time. But the constant use of it and where it became damaging was college. And I was basically, you know, was it social? Yes, but three times a week minimal. And I was a blackout artist in college, meaning like, you know, I drank to the point where I didn't, you know, really remember much of what happened the night before. Not with intention, but it was just what would happen. And that was all through college, every weekend. And you know, so I had my great strongholds and things that I really couldn't break past on my own strength. And yeah, that you know, I guess you could say the culmination of that followed me right into National Football League as a rookie. And you know, I had a little more money. You think a little money is going to be the cure-all, of course. Most people, you know, it's funny how the Word of God says money answers all things, and it's actually true. But it doesn't really deal with the ills of the heart. So that was it. You know, all my ills followed me right to the National Football League, and they were kind of magnified because money gave me more. And I came to a crashing halt, getting pulled over one day, you know, leaving Fort Lee with a pound of marijuana. And that was really that road to Damascus experience for me, because I was the keep it real guy who was just going to keep it real and do, you know, live my life. And I finally, that was that moment where, you know, the rubber met the road, and I had some decisions to make about who I was going to be moving forward.
Take me to the moment where you make that decision. I think your wife had a lot to do with it as well, but take me through what transpired and actually to the point where you were like, okay, Lord, I surrender, like truly surrendering your life to Christ.
Yeah. I didn't have a faith upbringing. We weren't married, obviously, at the time. You know, and we technically weren't together, but we were intimate in sin and unfavorably. What actually happened when I go into, you know, that entire rookie season, I guess you could say, you know, chapel was something that was offered, and it was intriguing, you know, like, you know, just, you know, got fellas there, but I really didn't have a true transformation. I had a confession of faith in Christ, but no substance whatsoever and no change. So I understand how things could not kind of work, even though you might, you know, God is kind of doing some things. He might be drawing you, but that true encounter with Christ hadn't really resonated. And in that moment when I was in that jail cell in Fort Lee, for the first time in my life, I really cried out to God. I just said, God, all I know is I need you. And if you'd allow me to keep my job, I'd appreciate that too. So that's February, I believe, you know, the end of February 2004. And, you know, basically, you know, I wish I could say, you know, the prison doors opened up and, and you know, but I kind of had to walk through some things over the next, few weeks, a few months. But in that time, over the course of 2 weeks, Jesus radically transformed my life to the point where it was a complete 180. I never drank again, never smoked again. I was married months later, and I was on fire for Christ. So I had a very, collision course encounter with Christ that left me changed forever.
How did you adapt to now being a football player who knew Christ versus the football player who didn't know Christ? What changed about the way that you went about your job as a wide receiver, as a special teams ace with the Giants?
Yeah, I think I don't think anybody was ready for me in the locker room. I go from you want to smoke to I was definitely that religious Christian no one wanted to encounter. And I don't think that's altogether wrong. I think change is radical. Of course, there's a way when you're seasoned and you understand better that you want to share. But sometimes we share the right thing the wrong way, and or we share the right thing without wisdom. So that was me. I was a young believer on fire, telling people they should stop sinning, and I wasn't popular initially. And then, but that was very much for a few months. And then I just kind of settled into separating myself. And I understood that was a part of the Christian life, that I could no longer, participate in some of the conversations. I could no longer participate in some of the, the debauchery or just the some of the behaviors that might be central in amongst young men. So I don't want to alienate the locker room like it's not a part of a segment of our larger population, but that is what goes down, right? So I just, I was married, and I was able to put a premium on things that were truly important to me without being a slave to vices that were hindering me from being the man I wanted to be.
So who was discipling you? What did discipleship even look like as a young follower of Christ and an NFL player?
Man, what a powerful question. So, I think I got immersed in the church, which is, there's two church cultures, man. Like there's a religious church culture where folks it's ingrained into our lifestyle. And then there's the reality of Jesus Christ and his church. But I think I just got thrown into the reality that God was who he was, and his church was something that I needed to be a part of. I got saved into a church in Bloomfield, Bethel Church of Love and Praise. I had a wonderful leader. It was Charles Harris. And for a number of years, that kind of dealt with the appetite. But I had a real hunger and an appetite for Christ. So discipleship wasn't really a part of the church structure. It was, I was at church a couple times a week. And I was at prayer. I was literally at church at least 3 times a week. Prayer on Tuesday, midweek service on Thursday, and of course, not during the season, but anywhere where I could be in the midst of believers and have an opportunity to praise God was typically where I found myself. So it wasn't, and to my detriment, I would honestly say there was no discipleship until many years later.
Quick break from our conversation to tell you about IJM, the International Justice Mission, sponsors and partners with us here at Sports Spectrum, believing every person deserves to be safe and free from violence. The International Justice Mission, partnering with local authorities to rescue victims of violence, bring criminals to justice, restoring survivors, and strengthening justice systems. They are helping to protect IJM as more than 150 million people around the world from violence and oppression. But it's work that they cannot do alone. They need your help. They need our help, the help of Freedom Partners, some of IJM's most loyal partners in the work of justice. And their support of $24 or more each month helps survivors of slavery and violence from the moment they're rescued until they are fully restored. You can join the fight right now to end slavery in our lifetime by visiting the website ijm.org/TF to become a Freedom Partner today. ijm.org/TF. We're also presented today by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. And Compassion right now has a great initiative called Fill the Stadium. And I want you to think about this. COVID-19, right? It's left so many in crisis, but it's left children around the world who are living in poverty in deep, deep trouble. Issues of food have gone from hunger to starvation. The pandemic has magnified these needs. And think about Compassion and what they're about, right? This past spring, most of the events that Compassion International relies on to help sponsor these children in crisis were canceled due to COVID-19. And it's left nearly 70,000 kids in desperate need of help. Well, 70,000 also happens to be the average size of many pro football stadiums that were once filled and now sit mostly empty. Each of these 70,000 empty seats represents a child in crisis who needs you, who needs us to step up and fill the stadium. Here's what you can do. Go to the website, fillthestadium.com. That's the website, fillthestadium.com. You can team up with Compassion International and their pro athlete friends to help these kids in crisis. This is a stadium that cannot remain empty. Go to fillthestadium.com, click Give Now, and help release these kids from poverty in Jesus' name. fillthestadium.com. David Tyree is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. That 2007 year, God did some pretty cool things. I remember you telling me about some of the things that he had done just in our time together walking around in Bristol at ESPN. Can you share a few of the things that you saw the Lord do, I guess, even early on in the season? Because you guys started 0-2, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah. 0-2. I missed the first 2 games with fractured wrist. And the one story right around that time frame, I had just hired a new CPA named Hubie Sin. And he kind of, I guess he was really, he calls me up brand new. He says, man, I know this might sound a little weird, but I got something I really feel the Lord wants to share with you. Do you mind? Man, I'm like, shoot, go for it. And he says, God sees your desire to glorify his name. And he says, the platform that you have right now as a special teams player is not big enough. God said he's going to make your name great as a wide receiver. So this is me with a fractured wrist, working my way through this surgery. And of course, my third season, I had won a third wide receiver position. Things just didn't work out. I'd always been competing. And so, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I don't know how God's going to do this, but, this is the year. So that was early in the season. I had a dream that there was a cloud over the New York Giant organization. I had a flash of Jerry Reese's face, who, we kind of later come to understand that that he was a strong believer as well, Jerry Reese himself, a man of great faith. And there were things that were happening throughout that year that were really so powerful. But that was the first early in the season. And God was just kind of giving us inklings about something amazing to happen, but I didn't know how he was going to do it. So, and I guess the most profound, powerful testimony was the night before the Super Bowl. And Kimberly Daniels, who co-wrote More Than Just a Catch with me, was a mother of my teammate, and she was obviously there, and we were praying the night before the game, and just made sense, just a prayer of blessing, and that shifted really quick, as she was praying for the game, praying for my wife and our twins who were to be born, and then she says, David, the Lord is quickening your feet. He's giving you feet of a hinds deer to jump high. And then she said, God is putting spiritual glue on your hands. And the last thing she said is, God is going to give you the big play. So with all this kind of going and happening in my head, all I knew is that I was believing God and expecting God for something great. And, and when she said God is going to give you the big play, I literally thought of the play that I scored in the Super Bowl, the most forgotten touchdown in Super Bowl history, right?
That's right. You did score a touchdown in that game.
Yeah, that no one cares about. It's great. So that's what I actually thought of when she said God's going to give you the big play. And lo and behold, Ephesians 3:20, God will do exceedingly and above all that we could ask, think, or imagine. And that played out to be the greatest catch in NFL history.
In NFL history. That's exactly right. No, that's crazy because, people forget. You have to it has to be around Super Bowl time, and you watch NFL Network and they re-show the NFL Super Bowl highlights, the 22-minute highlight film. When you watch that game, everybody remembers the Patriots were undefeated. That was the undefeated season. They come in heavy heavy underdog, or I should say heavy favorites. The Giants were heavy underdogs that year. The Giants went through Dallas and Green Bay on the road, and those two teams were the two best teams in the league. So you get to New England and you're like, all right, I guess it's all gravy at this point. Nobody expected you guys to win. You're hanging in there. You're shutting down this amazing offense. And then I think the first touchdown in the game the Giants scored was in the third quarter, and it was from Eli to you on a what would you call it, a slant route right near the end zone? Yeah,
it was actually the beginning of the fourth quarter after the nice big balls breakout. And we get down there, and it was a pop pass, we called it, in our heavy run action. And could have ran a little better route, but Eli stuck it in there.
And you caught it, right?
All Eli on that one. It was good, though.
No, that's good. I know after that, obviously we talked about a lot of the cool things that the Lord had done. But interestingly enough, as we talked about 2 years later, I guess, in 2009, you went to the Ravens, kind of finished out 1 year there. And then at 30 years old, you're done. What was that transition like? How hard was that for you? Or were you kind of ready for it?
Yeah, I think the 2 years, it was definitely like a wilderness experience from the moment. Obviously, it was a moment of fulfillment for me. And I remember coming back from Arizona, just amazed at God. And I just got away in prayer. And I said, Lord, all I want is more of you. I just remember that moment, that prayer. And, my heart truly meant it. And what I really, and of course, maybe a month later, I end up with this freak accident where I literally am just bending down and my knee locks up and I'm preparing for surgery. So, number one, I believe in God to heal me. I believe in God to do all kinds of things, but you have to go through that process of disappointment, suffering. And the Lord really took me through a couple of years of just dealing with who he was in my life and who I perceived him to be. Up until that point, I had only known God on the mountaintop. The Lord saved me. He cleaned me up. He brought me victory. He made me a Pro Bowler, made me a champion. And, it was a season where I really began to get acquainted with the Lord. And literally on my 30th birthday in a hotel room I believe it was the last game of our regular season, I had a powerful encounter with Christ. And it was really one of the first times I really began to discern the voice of God in my life. And I just remember, the culmination of God really communing with me. He said, he basically said to me, he said, no, all power belongs to me. I remember the Lord says, all power belongs to me. But he said, but you can fellowship with me in my suffering. And it was the crushing of everything that I thought this relationship with Christ was all about. And it was the entering of knowing Christ at a much deeper level. So, it looked like an absolute loss in regard to how my career moved forward after the catch, but it was all gain in pursuit of Christ.
I love hearing that. And I think a lot of people who listen, we have a lot of athletes, obviously a lot of coaches that listen to this show. And when you say you had an encounter with Christ, I'm really just curious as a friend of yours too, but as a follower of Christ, what does that look like? Like, are you in a hotel room picking up your Bible and all of a sudden you just feel the Spirit on you? Are you in prayer? What does an encounter with Christ look like in a moment like that for you?
And I haven't had many. I don't say that haphazardly. Yeah. But this was a raw encounter. I was in my hotel room, literally talking to my wife, and I was kind of, sharing a discourse. And I said, I'm the kind of person, you give me something to do, I want to knock it out, boom, 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 sit back, see what's next. And I literally heard, yeah, David, that's just how you treat me. Just like a taskmaster. And I'm in a hotel room talking to my wife. It was my birthday on the East Coast. I'm like, and I said, babe, I got to talk to you. And I just sat still and this download comes into my spirit. And it's like, yeah, when I saved you, I was the God of your deliverance. And you checked that off the list. And he said, yeah, when I blessed you with a new contract, I'm the God of your provision. And you checked that off the list. Yeah, he said, then I bless you with this. Now I'm the God of, and it was these moments of me feeling like I had apprehended God. And he says, you will never fully encompass me. I am the Lord. So this is all downloading in my spirit. And I'm weeping at the same time in this hotel room by myself. And then shortly after he said, you see, David, all power belongs to me. All power belongs to me, but you can fellowship with me in my suffering. So all the disappointment, these little soft tissue injuries I had never experienced before, the disappointments coming from the catch, it kind of led up to this moment of a raw encounter with Christ in a very real and living way. And like I said, that's what it allowed me to retire with such peace. It wasn't, I felt like I still had some juice left. And if it was a fair, not like money offer, but if somebody would have brought me in a camp, I would have went for it. But I just wasn't at a place where I felt like I need to be clamoring on to the next great football opportunity, working out, waiting in October. So, my life was full because of Christ.
That's good. What were those few years? I know that you took a job with the Giants as a director of player development, 2014. So there's a 4-year period in there between when you say goodbye to the NFL as a player and get back into the league working with the Giants. What were those 4 years like for you, trying to figure out where God was directing you? Because I know I've talked to a lot of guys who they feel peace about retiring or stepping away from the game, but the adjustment to not playing a sport that they haven't played, they have been playing for so many years, and suddenly you're home. I know you have 7 kids, which we could spend a whole nother podcast on just being a dad to 7 kids. But what was that adjustment like in those 3-4 years before you got back in the league?
Yeah, I think initially it was definitely tough. The toughest part of the transition for me, I wasn't, obviously I had done well for myself in my career, but I didn't make a whole boatload of money. So I felt the urgency to get to work. And, my advisor, he kind of created a position for me. It was just kind of help, laying a pathway for me to help figure out some things. It was just a disaster. In all honesty, the disaster is not the opportunity. The disaster was you go from being the best in the world at something that you do to, honestly, what am I really good at, right? Like, I'm really good at communicating. I'm really great with people. There's some things I could have tried on, but that just wasn't the best fit for me. It was a safe place for me to walk into, not feel like, there's all eyes on me and I'm being measured up everywhere I go. And so that year and a half was tough because, he had some deficiencies. I had some things that I was growing through. And then from there, I kind of realized that this wasn't the fit. And, I got busy utilizing my resources, and I took a career transition course with the NFL where I got reconnected with some great friends. The time was great, but Troy Vincent was a great friend and mentor to me. He was running the department at the time. And months later, I was able to transition back into the National Football League main office in New York City, which was part-time, but, it was about just taking that humble opportunity and allowing myself to grow from the ground up.
Was it interesting as a guy who was in player development, that meant really working with these players on a deeper level, not just as football players, but as men? Obviously, it's not a religious setting or a Christian setting, but your faith still is what guides you. Was it interesting to kind of be able to influence in a positive way with these players and have an impact on them, and knowing that really Christ could be seen hopefully through you in the way that you were working with these players?
It was definitely my hope. Troy Vincent's a strong believer at the time. James, amazingly strong brother in Christ, and they were in the department. So just to go to work with men of that caliber was like, I'm winning, right? And then we brought some other it was an amazing department for the time that I was there for a couple of years. And then, of course, to be able to assist and serve players, and that's really the love of God, the agape, that unconditional love of God. It just simply means he desires best for his creation, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like, even if you reject me, I still want you to do well, right? And that's the love that God has for his creation, all creation. And that was demonstrated, obviously, the death of his beloved son. So that's where we are with players who, and I think we serve them with who we are and what we have to offer. And Lord willing, we can share our life in a way where it's meaningful and we get a chance to testify about the goodness of Christ. And that moves in a way where it moves them closer to, eternity.
So as we wind down, why don't you share a little bit with our audience, kind of where God has brought you to today and where you maybe see him kind of directing your path going forward?
Yeah, it has been a revolutionary experience following Christ for these 16 years, I guess it is now. And yeah, man, I'm a full-fledged disciple maker. Like that's what my life has been hinged on for the last 10 years. I've been fortunate to be a part of a great community called Jesus Life International, come into a relationship of discipleship. And it's really about expanding the kingdom. My heart has always been about Christ and his kingdom. And that's my only true passion. I have lots of other things that I really love and I have interest in. Of course, like sports. I'm knitted to sports, knitted to football. But where my life oozes from is the pursuit of Christ, his church. So I have a great affection and a great affinity for my service and allegiance to Christ in that way. So I've been doing that for 10 years, preaching the gospel, making disciples, planting churches, full-blown hands to the plow. So, we're a little discreet with it. We don't do mass marketing. I just do it one at a time. And, and some people don't even know who I am until they meet me.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's fulfilling. And that's what we want to do is see, advance the kingdom.
How old are your kids now? Because I'm going to shake my head when I hear this, I think.
Yeah, my oldest son, Taeyeon's a freshman in NJIT. He turns 19 next month.
Wow.
Just turned 16 yesterday. I have identical twin girls. My Super Bowl babies are 12. And then we had 3 more post-career crumb snatchers. So Solomon's 10, Samuel's 9, and Alina is 7. So the quiver is more than full. And, I took my bow out. I said, God, I guess I need to go get snipped because you clearly want some righteous seed in the earth. So I bowed out. I said, God, I quit.
That's funny. And your wife's the hero of all of this, right?
My wife is a sanctified superhero. She is an excellent wife to me, mother to 7 children. She homeschools. We just opened a clean juice franchise here in Morristown, New Jersey. And she technically is the general manager of Clean Juice while getting everything done. And, so listen, what I do, I kind of tip my hat to it all. When you read the Proverbs 31 woman, she does it all. And that's what my wife is. She's, I'm in the gates making sure that she has everything that she needs.
That's right. The wives are the unsung heroes. I tell people when you want to talk to athletes, talk about their wives and you'll see them glow because they really carry the momentum, right? Man.
Couldn't be more true. But she's heavenly and I celebrate her. So there's a lot more to come. It's definitely been a new season in life that's kind of the Lord has opened up, even in regard to just the vocation and ways to bring impact. So I'm really excited.
That's good. Last question, David. This has been great. Thanks for all your time here. I've been excited to have you back on the show. And this is a question we ask all of our guests, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit. How has God worked in your life this year in 2020 as we head into 2021, as we wind down the season? It's been such a crazy year, pandemics and racial unrest and political divides and everything here, there, and everywhere. How's the Lord been working on you? What's the great lesson he's taught you?
Man, it has certainly been, and I think a lot of people are bearing the weight of 2020. So I'm certainly not unique in this way. As it all has come, there was a lot from the new year dealing with coronavirus. In May, learning they weren't going to renew my contract. We were already planning to launch a franchise business that opened in June. So opening a business in coronavirus and a pandemic. Still committing to a homeschooling our family with a college son. And what I've learned is, and then, I'll probably have to put a dunce cap on, but we chose to move in the middle of this craziness as well. So, it was all kinds of lessons. It's been a crushing, and I've learned my great need for, for the body. I mean, like my life has been given to people, but I've also been the beneficiary of meaningful relationships. And I couldn't sustain the areas of, of either excellence or even just functionality without people and just saying, hey, I need. So I've just learned a greater sense of my poverty and my need, even in the midst of maturing and, navigating these transitions that are major, right? Just sending a kid to college and raising a family of 7, that's enough in itself without all the transition. But he's reigned through it all. He's been delightful. But there's a scripture that says he delights in the death of his saints. And I think there's a crushing that always brings the Lord, the aroma unto death, that always brings some measure of delight in understanding that he's working something in us as his children. So I think there's nothing better to be in the Son of God and be able to testify to the true living God.
That's well said. He is David Tyree, Super Bowl champion, 13 years. I can't believe it's been 13 years since you guys won the Super Bowl. That's crazy. But now he's a father, he's a husband, he's a disciple maker, and he's a son, a follower of Christ. And that's the most important part. David Tyree, thanks, brother. Appreciate you coming on the show. Always great to catch up.
Had a blast. Always do with you. Thank you.
And many thanks to my friend David Tyree for joining us here on Sports Spectrum. It's crazy. 13 years ago, David wins the Super Bowl. 3 days after that, he comes to ESPN, and I get to spend the day with him and secure his day and kind of take him around and produce a day of interviews for David Tyree in Bristol, Connecticut at ESPN. And that was literally 3 days after making the greatest catch in Super Bowl history, the helmet catch, helping the Giants to a Super Bowl victory over the undefeated New England Patriots. And David was just awesome. I mean, this is a guy who has a passion for Jesus. And that's what it was like 13 years ago when I met him, and continues all the way to today. I mean, we talked for another half hour about Jesus after we hit stop on the recording of this conversation. So make sure you go check out David's website, davidtyree85.com. That was his number when he played. davidtyree85.com. And let him know that you heard his story, whether it's through the website or on his Instagram page on Sports Spectrum. Thanks to David. This is an interview I've waited a long time for, and I'm glad we were able to finally do it with David Tyree, and he joins us here today on the show. We also want to thank our partners and sponsors today, IJM, the International Justice Mission. Check them out at ijm.org/TF and support them as they are fighting to end slavery. It's that simple, and you can join that fight as well by going to their website, ijm.org/TF. And then, of course, Compassion International, we thank them as well. You can join the team with Compassion and pro athletes to help children in poverty through this crisis with COVID-19 right now, and donate at fillthestadium.com and release these kids and their families from poverty. fillthestadium.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. One more place we want to direct you to is our website, sportspectrum.com. That's the home base for everything we got going on here. Check it out at sportspectrum.com. This podcast is there. Devotionals each morning. Articles all day long right there at sportspectrum.com. And then lastly, click that subscribe button on whatever app you're listening to this podcast on so that you never miss an episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast. We appreciate you and the audience that you've brought to this show. Over 2 million downloads and going strong. We appreciate you so very much for telling others and for tuning in into the Sports Spectrum show. Love you guys. We'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. My name is Jason. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.